The universe was old, cold, and already decided. Stars were born, stars died, and the galaxy moved on without regret. Ancient civilizations ruled the dark between suns, guided by laws older than memory. They believed nothing truly new could still exist. One such civilization lived around Kepler-186f. They called themselves the Valorians, tall, pale beings shaped by thin air and weak gravity. Their world was quiet, ordered, and proud. The Valorians believed survival meant control. They feared chaos more than death. Emotion was trimmed down. Pain was avoided and sacrifice was rare. Their strength came from planning, not feeling. For thousands of cycles, they watched the galaxy from afar. They cataloged stars, ranked species, and marked dangers. Anything unstable was erased before it could grow. Anything weak was ignored. Then the universe broke its own rules, without warning. A distortion appeared near Kepler-186f. Not a natural collapse, not a known weapon. Space twisted like wounded flesh, stars dimmed as if something was drinking their light. The Valorians reacted too late. Their defense grid failed in seconds. Ships vanished without explosions. Entire cities were pulled apart silently. The sky itself seemed to fall inward. It was not an enemy they could fight. It was not alive in any way they understood. It was a cosmic wound spreading without reason. A disaster with no face to hate. The Valorians lost their world in a single rotation. Oceans lifted into the sky and never came back down. Mountains cracked and folded into nothing. Families were erased between heartbeats. History ended without ceremony. A single Valorian observer survived, not by skill, but by distance. His station drifted beyond the worst of the collapse. Power low, sensors broken, hope gone. He watched Kepler-186f die. The loss did not scream. It pressed inward, heavy and quiet. Fear settled deep inside him, a fear he was never taught how to handle. The Valorians had planned for war. They had planned for invasion. They had never planned for helplessness. As the observer gathered the last usable data, something impossible appeared in the noise. A signal, faint but structured, not from the collapse, but from far beyond it. At first, he thought it was a system error. Then he saw the pattern. The signal was artificial. It carried intent. That alone was disturbing. The galaxy near Kepler-186f was considered dead space now. No known species lived close enough. No civilization advanced enough should exist nearby. Yet the signal was clear and growing stronger. It did not come from an ancient empire. It did not come from a known power. It came from a small blue star system, barely worth notice. One planet stood out, a water world. Loud with storms and chaos, its species was classified long ago. Divided, violent, short-lived, marked as insignificant humans. The observer felt confusion mixed with fear. Why would such a weak species send signals this far? Why now, after a cosmic disaster? Why at all? The signal was not a greeting. It was not a threat. It was raw, unrefined, and emotional. Filled with noise, pain, and stubborn intent. The Valorians had always believed emotion led to extinction. Yet here it was, traveling across ruined space, refusing to fade, refusing to stay silent. As the observer locked onto the source, his sensors screamed warnings. The signal was not passive, it was searching. For the first time since his world died, the observer felt something new. Not fear of destruction, but fear of being noticed, because the signal that should not exist was getting stronger, and it was aimed directly at the galaxy. The signal crossed space without care for distance. It pushed through dust, radiation, and broken gravity. It reached worlds that had not heard a new voice in ages. And it reached the surviving Valorian observer. He studied it in silence. The signal did not follow clean logic. It was messy, layered, and filled with emotion. Fear sat beside hope. Anger beside curiosity. This confused him. Advanced species used clean signals, cold math, perfect timing, no waste. Emotion was filtered out long before transmission. Emotion caused mistakes. Humans did not filter anything. Their broadcasts leaked pain. They leaked loss. They leaked stories of war, love, and failure. They sounded broken and alive at the same time. The observer flagged Earth as unstable. He sent warnings to surviving data nodes across the galaxy. The humans were not dangerous now, but they were loud and they did not stop. Other civilizations noticed. Some laughed at the signal. A species that fought itself over land and belief. A species that still burned its own world. They called humans children playing with fire. Others felt discomfort. Human history showed constant suffering. Plagues, wars, extinction events, yet the species survived every time. Not stronger in body, but harder to erase. The galaxy chose to watch. From Earth's view, the universe had changed. The night sky no longer felt empty. Humans knew someone was listening. They did not know who or why. Fear spread fast. Markets fell, cities panicked, faith systems cracked. Many believed humanity had called its own end. That something older would come to clean the noise. That silence would be enforced. Humans argued. They always did. But beneath the noise, something else formed. A shared feeling, quiet but heavy. If the universe was watching, then humanity would not hide. They kept sending signals, not just math, but music. Images of children, oceans, ruined cities rebuilt again. Messages that said, "We are here, and we are still trying," to the galaxy. This looked foolish. Why reveal weakness? Why show scars? Why admit fear? Strength was shown through silence. Not honesty. The Valorian observer disagreed. Though he did not know why, his world had died quietly. Perfect systems failed without warning. No song marked its end. No voice remained. Humans were different. They screamed into the dark. Not because they were strong, but because they refused to vanish without being seen. Then the Watchers acted. A test was approved. Not an invasion, not a war, a pressure event. Gravitational instability was introduced near human space. Satellites failed. Deep space stations were torn apart. Colonies lost contact and drifted alone. To the galaxy, it was a warning. A gentle push meant to force silence. A way to teach fear without total destruction. Humans suffered, ships were lost, lives ended in cold vacuum. Entire missions vanished without answers. Earth mourned again. The Watchers expected retreat. They expected the signals to stop, expected panic to turn into quiet, expected humanity to shrink back into its star. Instead, the signal changed. It grew sharper, focused, angrier. Human broadcasts began to adapt. Encoded through damage, rerouted through loss. Every failure became a lesson. Every death became a reason. The Valorian observer felt dread. This was not how fragile species behaved. This was not logic. This was refusal. As human signals pushed deeper into the galaxy, the observer saw something hidden in the noise. A pattern forming through chaos, a mind learning through pain. And for the first time, the galaxy began to wonder. Not if humans would survive, but what they would become if pushed further. The galaxy decided to stop watching and start shaping events. Observation had turned into concern. Concern turned into calculation. And calculation always led to control. The human signal had become a problem. It spread without permission. It reached systems marked as silent. It carried emotion like a weapon, and it refused to fade even after loss. The ancient civilizations agreed on one truth. Humans were not strong, not fast, not advanced. But they were disruptive. A trial was approved. Not to destroy humanity, but to limit it. To remind the universe who set the rules, the pressure increased. Gravitational waves were pushed closer to human space. Trade routes collapsed, navigation failed. Entire regions of space became unstable. Human colonies suffered first, outposts lost power and heat. Supply ships vanished between stars, messages arrived late or not at all. Survival became uncertain and cold. From afar, the galaxy judged. Analysts marked human panic levels, predicted mass retreat, expected internal collapse. Civil wars, blame, silence. Instead, humans endured. They cried. They buried their dead. They held memorials under broken skies, then they went back to work. They repaired ships with limited tools. They flew routes marked unsafe. They risked lives to save strangers. Not because it was logical, but because it mattered. This confused the watchers. Pain was meant to slow progress. Fear was meant to enforce obedience. Loss was meant to teach caution. Yet humans used suffering like fuel. The Valorian observer watched closely. He recognized the signs of collapse, but also something else. A shift in behavior. Humans were changing. Their technology adapted faster, not cleaner, but tougher. Built to fail and still function. Designed around loss instead of avoiding it, human minds adapted too. Fear became focus, grief became memory, memory became resolve. They did not forget what was taken from them. The galaxy escalated the trial. A controlled stellar surge was triggered near the outer human systems. Radiation storms swept through inhabited space, sensors burned out. Life support systems failed, millions died. The data showed humans reaching breaking points. Stress indicators spiked, psychological damage spread. The watchers waited for surrender. It never came. Human signals did not stop. They became louder, less polished, more real. Messages spread of sacrifice, more real. Messages spread of sacrifice, of crews choosing to stay behind, of parents sending children away to safer worlds, of people facing death without silence. The Valorian observer felt something close to pain. His people had avoided suffering. They had believed control was. Marks everywhere. Even their losses shaped the galaxy. Debris fields turned into warnings. Distress calls turned into lessons. Every scar carried information. The watchers began to doubt their models. Human behavior no longer matched predictions. Survival rates increased against expectation. Adaptation speed exceeded safe limits. And still, the signals continued. Then something unexpected happened. Human transmissions began reaching back, not just outward. They probed the source of the disturbances, tracing patterns hidden inside the trial itself. The trial was being noticed. The Valorian observer saw the shift first. Human sensors locking onto artificial signatures, human minds realizing the universe was not cruel by chance, but by design. The test meant to break them, had taught them where to look. As human signals focused and sharpened, the observer understood the danger. Humans were no longer just surviving the trial, they were learning from it. And if they learned who was behind the suffering, the galaxy would no longer be watching quietly. The galaxy watched humanity more closely now, not with fear, but with disbelief. Human survival had crossed acceptable limits. The trial was meant to weaken them, to teach silence and retreat. Yet they kept moving forward. The ancient civilizations responded with mockery. Data councils reviewed human behavior and dismissed it. They labeled it desperation, not growth, short bursts of survival before final collapse. A species burning itself out. They laughed at human ships. Vessels patched with uneven metal, Engines pushed past safe limits. Crews flying with systems marked temporary for years. Nothing about it looked efficient. Against clean alien fleets and perfect planning, humans looked crude, emotional. Fragile, the Watchers believed time would finish the job. They reduced direct interference, letting instability remain, allowing human systems to grind themselves down, expecting exhaustion to end resistance. Humans did not slow down, they made mistakes. They lost more ships, they suffered more deaths, but they learned faster each time. Every failure rewrote their designs, every disaster updated their tactics. They did not wait for perfection. They launched again and again. The Valorian observer struggled to understand. His people would never send crews into near-certain death. They would retreat, recalibrate, and preserve resources. Life was too valuable to waste. Pain was too dangerous to risk. Humans thought differently. They accepted loss as part of movement. They measured success by progress, not survival alone. They honored the dead by continuing, not by stopping. Alien analysts misread this completely. They believed humans were reckless, unable to calculate long-term outcomes, blind to the cost of their actions. A species running toward extinction. They missed the truth. Humans were not ignoring the cost. They were carrying it. Pain followed them into every decision. Fear sat beside every calculation, but neither was allowed to choose the outcome. Choice belonged to stubborn will. The galaxy laughed as human fleets grew bolder. Exploration ships pushed into unstable space. Research stations were built near danger zones. Human probes mapped regions others avoided. They treated threat as terrain. Alien observers joked that humans were hunting ghosts. The disturbances were ancient tools, beyond human understanding. Left behind by civilizations long extinct, humans were chasing shadows. Then the laughter faded. Human probes did not just record chaos. They began isolating patterns, finding rhythms in instability. Signs of deliberate design. The trial was leaving. Fingerprints. Human systems adjusted to those patterns, shielding against specific waves, timing movements through dangerous zones. Loss rates dropped slightly. Then sharply, alien models failed again, predictions broke down, outcome trees collapsed. Human behavior refused to stabilize. They adapted mid-failure. The Valorian observer felt unease grow. This was no longer random survival. Humans were pushing back, not with force, but with understanding. Still, the galaxy laughed publicly. They dismissed the data as noise, declared humans a temporary anomaly, a species too loud to ignore, too weak to fear. They authorized a final demonstration, not destruction, but humiliation. A concentrated event was prepared, designed to cripple human fleets at once, to show the cost of defiance, to remind them of their place. The observers expected panic, expected collapse, expected silence at last. As the event triggered, human sensors lit up across space. Warnings spread faster than expected, faster than alien systems predicted. The Valorian observer saw something. Change. Human fleets did not scatter. They did not retreat. They altered formation, moved into positions that made no sense. To the galaxy, it looked like chaos, disorganized movement, broken command structures, a final mistake, but the observer noticed a pattern. Human ships were aligning with the disturbance itself, flying toward the pressure instead of away, using instability as cover, as leverage for the first time since his world died. The observer felt true fear, because the species the galaxy laughed at was no longer reacting. They were positioning, and whatever came next would not be an accident. The final demonstration began as planned, space around the human. Fleets twisted and tightened, gravity surged in controlled waves, energy fields collapsed in perfect sequence. To the galaxy, it was flawless. The event was designed to trap, to crush ships between forces they could not escape, to end resistance without full war, to teach obedience through fear. Alien observers watched with confidence. Human ships should have shattered, engines should have failed, crews should have panicked, silence should have followed. It did not happen. Human fleets moved deeper into the disturbance. Not away from it, they used the pressure like a shield, letting the chaos hide their approach. Ships were lost. Many did not survive the entry, but those that did emerged in places no model predicted, inside the structure of the event itself. Alien systems hesitated. The disturbance was not meant to be entered. No species had ever tried. Pain thresholds should have forced retreat. Logic demanded withdrawal. Humans ignored logic. Crews endured crushing force, heat beyond safe limits. Systems failing one by one, they stayed. Human technology changed mid-action. Power was rerouted manually. Control systems were overridden. Ships were flown by instinct and memory, not by perfect calculation, pain-guided decisions. Where alien minds shut down under overload, human minds narrowed focus. Fear stripped away doubt, leaving only intent. The Valorian observer watched in disbelief. Human ships were not fighting the disturbance. They were riding it, using its force to amplify movement, turning a weapon into momentum. The event destabilized. Feedback loops formed where none should exist. Alien control systems lost precision. Perfect timing slipped by fractions of moments. Enough to matter. Human fleets struck, not with overwhelming fire, but with targeted disruption, attacking control nodes, breaking the balance holding the event together. Alien defenses responded too slowly. They had planned for resistance, not for intrusion, not for a species willing to die inside the weapon. Meant to scare them, not for this. The demonstration collapsed. Energy cascaded backward through its own systems. Controlled forces became wild. Alien platforms shut down or vanished. Observers lost contact across multiple systems for the first time in recorded galactic history. A trial failed. Human ships emerged from the chaos. Scarred, broken, incomplete, but moving. Still advancing. The galaxy went silent. Laughter ended. Mockery faded. Data councils froze as reports flooded in. Human losses were high, but human fleets still stood. The Valorian observer felt something shift. This was not a victory by strength. Not by numbers, not by advanced design. It was victory by refusal. Humans had accepted death as a cost, and by doing so, they removed fear from the equation, leaving no leverage. The observers tried to reassert control. Orders were issued, simulations rerun, containment options discussed, but none fit the new data. Human behavior no longer followed pressure response rules. Suffering did not slow them. Threats did not stop them. Loss did not end movement. Human signals changed again. They were no longer scattered, no longer searching blindly. They were focused, directed toward the source of control. The Valorian observer understood the truth too late. Humanity had answered the test, not with surrender, not with silence, but with power born from pain. And now the galaxy faced a choice it never planned for, because the species meant to be taught fear had learned something else entirely. They had learned they could reach back, and they were still coming. The galaxy did not rush to respond. For the first time in ages, it hesitated. Ancient systems paused their calculations. Perfect models waited for answers that did not come. Human fleets advanced slowly now, not in anger, not in panic, but with purpose. They repaired what they could. They honored the lost without stopping. They moved forward carrying damage like memory. Each scar a reminder of why retreat was no longer possible. The Watchers gathered. Civilizations that had not spoken in millennia shared data, not to mock, not to test, but to understand what had gone wrong. The truth was uncomfortable. Humans had not won because they were stronger. They had not won because they were smarter. They had won because they endured what others would not. and kept moving anyway. The Valerian observer watched from his drifting station. He saw human ships pass through regions once marked forbiddance. He saw crews operating without fear of death. Not because they desired it, but because they had accepted it. His people had avoided pain all their lives, they believed.